Alright, for this video I wanted to go over the FinCEN BOI report, and specifically we want to talk about some circumstances and the rules around when you need to file updated returns. So I've got a sample report in front of us, which is a pretty straightforward one. And then we've also got just one slide here covering some background on these changes and the deadlines. And we're just trying to highlight the scope of how often some of these companies are going to need to file updated reports. So speaking generally about the deadlines, just as a reminder here, if you have an entity that was set up before Jan 1, 2024, you have to submit that first BOI report before January 1st, 2025. For entities that are set up in 2024, the report's due within 90 days. And then for entities that are set up in 2025 and then later dates, or later years rather, the report's due within 30 days. Now, after that initial report is filed, the company has to file updated reports if there are any changes in the beneficial ownership of the company, or if there are any changes to any of the information that was originally submitted on that initial BOI report. And these updated reports have to be filed within 30 days of the change. Now, the obvious one is simply a change in the equity. So a change in beneficial owner, meaning there's a sale or a transfer of equity. That's kind of the obvious one. But some of these others are not as clear. Perhaps people don't think about it as much when they first get into this. So obviously a sale or transfer of equity in the company, but if you are removing or appointing new key officers or directors, and those are individuals that have to be disclosed as beneficial owners, you're going to have changes there as well. So if a CEO steps down and you get a new CEO, you've got to file an updated report to show that change. You also need to file anytime there's any changes in who's considered an individual that has substantial control over the entity. So that's another one. That's kind of the catch-all. So if you've got individuals that are coming in and out of the company in certain roles, you're going to be making changes there as well. And then lastly, if you have any kind of deceased individuals, well, if they're no longer affiliated with the company because they're deceased, they have to be removed as well. The other one are changes in company name, right? So if you change the company name, address, or the DBA, so if we look at what the initial information reported by the reporting company, right? So in this example, we've got a fake US LLC here. It reports its EIN. EINs likely don't change that often for a company. Even if you change your name, you can very often keep the same EIN. But obviously the current U.S. address, so if the address is changing, you've got to file a new return to update the address. If you have a DBA that you've added or registered for the company, you'll have to file a report change as well. If you had a DBA that you canceled, then you'd have to file a report to remove it. So you've got to file a lot of updates depending on those changes to the company name or address. And this is another big one. So this third bullet point, the change in address for any beneficial owner, right? So the beneficial owners, so in this sample return, we have two beneficial owners. So the first one is John Doe, who is also the company applicant. And if we scroll down to John's information here, so John did not register to get his own FinCEN ID. So John's information, his date of birth, his address, his passport details, all of that's reported here. So if John were to move and change his address, then the company, because all of it's listed here, would need to file an updated report. Now, the other beneficial owner, let's say Jane Smith, her information isn't reported here because she registered for her own FinCEN ID. So the company here is reporting the FinCEN ID for Jane. They're not reporting her actual details. So now if Jane were to move, the company doesn't have to file a new BOI report. Jane has to personally go into the system and update her details. So it kind of shifts the burden from the reporting company having to file the change to the beneficial owner that needs to file the change. And then last one, and this is certainly going to affect everybody because these documents expire, but if you have a identifying document that was uploaded and it is now expired, the new one that you get is going to have different details, right? It's going to have a different number assigned to it, right? Passports get assigned a new number, new expiration dates, and so that information is going to have to change as well. So in this same example here, if we look at John John uploaded a copy of his passport as a beneficial owner. When this thing expires and he's got to update with a new one, then the company would have to file an updated BOI report to update the passport details for John. So again, another reason why it's probably a better idea for reporting companies to get their beneficial owners to sign up for FinCEN IDs, because that again shifts the burden to the individual rather than the company itself. Now, what are some reporting timelines and issues for these? Well, again, the changes have to be updated within 30 days, so you don't get very much time. And the FinCEN, the final regs and the proposed regs have some data about what these kind of changes are going to impact the companies. And so they do reference the census data in 2020 and 2021 showed that 8.16% of the population changed their address during the year. So it kind of follows that, okay, well, if a little over 8% of the population changes their address, then they estimate that, well, you're going to have to file an updated BOI report because 8% of these reports are going to have a beneficial owner that changes their address, and so they're going to need a new report. They've also estimated the beneficial ownership changes because of management decisions. So that's, again, a CEO stepping down and a new one coming on board, or a new person getting promoted. That's going to impact about 10% of reporting companies during the year. So if you were to just look at these two variables and add them together, you're estimating maybe, let's say, 20% of all those initial BOI reports that are submitted are going to need an update on a yearly basis. So quite a lot of updated reports are actually going to have to be filed, even though you're not going to really have any kind of changes in equity for the company. So what are some steps to limit these updated BOI reports or cut down on the volume for the reporting company? Well, if the companies encourage a lot of their beneficial owners to sign up for their own FinCEN ID, that'll certainly help, right? Because again, that shifts the burden to the individual to update any kind of changes in address they have. If they have an expired ID and they need to update their ID, those are all changes that'll happen at the individual level. They'll do their own filings, and the company is not going to be required to completely submit a brand new BOI updated report. All right. So that covers everything I wanted to address here. I think that the lesson learned here, the takeaway is that think of terms of how many changes are going to be made to any of the information that's submitted. So it's addresses, it's IDs. So it's actually going to require a lot more updated filings than people think, because this is not simply just a change in the equity structure of the company, right? The company equity ownership might not change at all, but if you've got changes in address, changes in IDs, changes in roles within a company, so officers or directors being promoted or demoted, you're going to need updated BOI reports. All right, so thanks for sticking with me here to the end. Always appreciate you watching, and as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks.